Welcome in, Who Dat Nation, to your New Orleans Saints victory celebration. That's exactly what we're doing here on the podcast today. I know there are those of you out there who are like, what's the point of winning and becoming 2-8? Well, here's the point. You won, and it feels good. It does. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. You've made it to another Saints win. You didn't know if you'd see one the rest of this season. Be honest. Don't have to lie to me. You questioned whether you'd see another one, but you did. And welcome to it. We're going to talk about it today, go through the numbers, the analysis, and of course, we have to talk about Tyler Shuck and the offense. But more importantly, this defense continues to show up. And a lot of players and fans and analysts are always talking about division game. Coming into this game, only thing that mattered to me, Carolina Panthers were a winning football team. They were 5-4 on their home turf. New Orleans Saints come in on a road game, win the game. All that matters, not who they played. Yes, I get divisional opponents can certainly be, you may have the advantage in some instances, but you come in, you win, you dominate. Let's start with how this game went. They're going to jump into the chat. Do me a solid. If you're out there, share this out with everybody who is watching live. For those who are listening on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart Radio, after the fact, thank you for being there as well. And who dat, and God bless to you. I've said it all year. You've got to be a real fan of New Orleans team to deal with the issues such as all the losses and things that we've had. The trading of Rashid Shaheed, obviously being a big fan favorite, but managing to come out with a win. And we're going to jump into this analysis. Real quick, though, Raheem says good win, but Moore still makes some questionable calls and odd time management. I actually agree with you. And as good as this game was, it's not all cheeky rainbows and such. Let's start how it went, though. Let's go over how this game went. First drive is it's a touchdown. It actually felt like the Panthers were going to do what we saw a lot of last week. Panthers have a 12-play drive, 47 yards, and they had the penalty yards. They end up going all the way down and getting a touchdown. And not only that, they had the ball for 8 minutes. So it felt like 7 minutes. It felt like the Saints were going to get into the same standard that we have them, and have had for a while, which is, the Saints just aren't going to live up to the hype. They're going to lose again. We're going to keep pushing on to that number one pick. New Orleans Saints respond with their own 10-play, 78-yard drive to actually see some goodness, some freshness, some actually decent play calling from Kellen Moore, who has justifiably been questioned lately. Ends at the Carolina 2, though. That is a negative. Don't punch it in, settle for a field goal, points are points. On the other side of the ball, you force the Carolina Panthers to punt 4 straight times after that touchdown, and then they end the half on a nothing burger. So the only scoring we ended up seeing from Carolina was that very first drive. And up after that, you saw the Saints defense hold tall. In fact, I want to highlight guys on the defense, such as Cameron Jordan, managing to pick up a sack, 3.5 on the year. Obviously not going to hit those double digits he was on pace for, but still great to see Nate Shepard getting one in. Chase Young had some good pressures. We saw an interception by Lante Taylor, pass deflections by Demario Davis, and an INT that should have counted had it not been called back by penalty. The defense was humming. Now, again, the defense also had its flaws. You look at what you see on the other side of that ball, you still gave up over 200 yards. For this team, that's great, but you only gave up 7 points, which allowed the offense to try to be more like the offense, which is completely A-okay. Look, this offense is not necessarily going to be a world beater, but you saw Alvin Kamara run the ball 22 times. That's a little high for my taste, but 3.8 carries, 16 long. You saw Tyler Shuck throw for 70% completion, 282 yards, breaking the franchise rookie game record set way back in the 1980s, and 2 TDs, no interceptions, a 128.9 QB rating. These are all good numbers. These are all great numbers if you're a Saints fan because it led to a W. Again, defensively, you saw Demario Davis continue to be on top. Pete Warner having a much better game, and this is coming off a Carolina team that was a winning team. Now, I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's proverbial butt here. This does not mean I'm secretly saying we're going to make a run at the very end and turn it all around. But I am saying you saw a lot of good, especially from your young players you needed to see. Offensively, you needed to see, well, what does this team look like with a weakened offensive line, which you did see them have some odd pre-snap penalties. We got the penalties on the screen, 6 for 60 right now. You also saw the receiver room look a little bit different. You've only got Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed. Who would catch passes? Well, the answer to that, some people that you probably didn't even know were on the team, such as Mitchell Podden. Many of you didn't know. Don't lie. Who are you lying to? But that actually is one of the positives to bring up because Olave caught a ball. Johnson, Kamara, Moreau, Vele, Mitchell Podden, Devin Neal, and Taysom Hill. 8 different receivers and only 19 completions. The ball was spread around. You found success. Chris Olave has a 100+ yard game. And you just saw the offense show the downward progression that got better as the game went on, not only pushing the field, but the success that comes by trying it. And you can see some of the highlights of why people like Tyler Shuck. Ball placement overall, definitely better. But what surprised me the most about Shuck in this game was how much better he's playing in terms of pocket poise and extending the play. I've said all season long that one thing that Spencer Rattler had way above in terms of training camp, what we saw, and even in the early games, above Tyler Shuck was the ability to move the pocket, create plays on the run, and create first downs. And you saw Shuck do that today. Now, it's one game, and you certainly can't go crowning Tyler Shuck or anybody after one game. But a 70% completion, 282, 10 yards per attempt, which is something we've harped on. Like that was a thing that Rattler had to get through. Rattler always wanted to settle for what was close. Spencer Rattler was sometimes a little too conservative, but he would make a play. He would get first downs. Shuck says, shuck it. And he throws that pass, even though Chris Olave's covered sideline to sideline with J.C. Horn, and he trusts Chris Olave to make the catch. Right? He did that with, and this is going to, for Saints fans, he did it with Juwan Johnson a couple times a day. Juwan Johnson finishes with a TD, a 52-yard catch, which is the longest of his career, and 4 for 4. He trusted Juwan Johnson, who, if you see it, Chad, come on, let's be honest real quick. If you see him with his drops, the problems that he's having, you would sometimes struggle to have trust in him as well. And yet you did not see that from Tyler Shuck. Now, I don't think it was a perfect game. Number one, you only scored 17 points. They did have the opportunity to do that today. They did. Like they could have scored another one. They took the foot off the gas. Just a thought, had Sean Payton been here into the fourth quarter, Tyler Shuck might have a third touchdown or Alvin Kamara would have had a rushing touchdown. But Kellen Moore says, hey, we've won the game. We're just going to work it and take knees. Fine. Personally, I would rather put it on the throat. But I'm going to take my win and be happy about it. But we saw goodness there. I still think that there are issues with some of the play calling with Kellen Moore. I question why he does some of the stuff that he does. All right, for example, obvious situations of QB power, you know it's going to get sniffed out. It gets sniffed out, and we go, well, we'll just do that again next drive. There are still some decision-makings in this game that make me question Kellen Moore, but end of the day, you end it with a 17-7 win. The defense continues to look good. Atlanta lost today to the Indianapolis Colts. If you're a Saints fan, that's got to make you happy. And just to be completely honest with you, this doesn't really hurt too much for you nuts out there who say, well, we need to lose football games so that, well, we can, get the top draft pick. Well, if it makes you feel any better, the standings have not changed much, Saints fans. You still very much are in the runnings. You're not hurting for top draft picks. So one win did not change the world. You're not looking at this team secretly being great. They still are who they are. However, your New Orleans Saints have won a game. And they did it in a way that showed that this team could be better. And the reason that that is so important and worth mentioning is we talked about this just last week. Teams do one of two things. They either get better or they get worse. And this team, even Nick Underhill said it, was playing worse. Now you're seeing them play better. Whether it was a day today was just the day, or whether it is the change of working with a new quarterback, remains to be seen. But Tyler Shuck, along with the New Orleans Saints, pick up a victory. And I, for one, am incredibly happy. For those curious, by the way, as of this win, the New Orleans Saints have now moved to the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, going by our friends over at Tankathon. So, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, the Tennessee Titans still got you. But if you notice on the screen, you've got New York Jets still there, Cleveland still there. New York Jets have won 2 games in a row, right? So, even if the Saints win this one, hey, maybe they win out and we really shock the world. But if you're out there and you are Team Tankathon, which I'm not, but I feel like I need to give a service to y'all. Y'all are mourning today. You're still number 2. For the rest of us Hoodats, we won, baby. Who dat? We love it. Raheem says, feels like Kellen Moore is not a put it on the throat guy. He's more finesse. At times I feel like he coaches scared. I actually do agree with that to an extent. I do hope he gets more of that. Now, to be clear, it wasn't, and when we talk about Hall of Fame coaches, we know Sean Payton. Obviously, he was in New Orleans. Well, Sean Payton of 2006 wasn't the Sean Payton that was, doing the juicy fruit stuff and the things in Minnesota Miracle. It took time to be there. Now, he always had a level of arrogance and confidence. I've said it before. Good teams have to have that. And I think you saw a little bit of it today. How can I give examples of how I saw Kellen Moore being just a little bit more aggressive? Well, number one, they went for it on 4th down 3 times, and they were 2 for 3. They went for it on 3rd down 17 times and got 8 of them. Those are 2 fantastic percentages if you're a Saints fan. Not only that, you scored almost 400 yards. 388 net yards while only allowing 175. That is an extremely lopsided amount. And while I am still standing here saying, Kellen Moore, your offense isn't scoring more than 20 points, because don't let the nice things I've said about Shuck and Hill and etc. and Olave change the fact that all those good things, you still only scored 17 points. Let's not get too excited. There's clearly issues that need to be addressed here. But, you got almost 400 yards of total offense. The penalties are down. Should you get 6 penalties a game? No. But when you were getting 10 penalties a game, that's better. Hopefully we see that continue to improve. Time of possession dominated by the New Orleans Saints. That certainly wasn't the case against the LA Rams. And while I'm not saying that Carolina is the same as the Rams, they're certainly closer to each other than what either of us were perceived to be close to either one of them. So, all right, here's what we're going to do, chat. As we always do, we try to go through the game. We try to highlight it, but then we want to be focused on the community, because the community is what always made New Orleans special. The New Orleans Saints, even those of us who deal with the Pelicans. Yep, I do that. Also, shout out to the Baton Rouge Zydeco, the Monroe Moccasins, and the Shreveport Mudbugs. I'm shouting out all of our professional teams, even the minor league ones. Shout out to you. Let's keep it going. All right. Rainey says tanking doesn't solve any problems, and I agree with that. Look, I completely agree tanking doesn't. But there are people out there, and you know who all said it to me? My wife. My wife was like, aren't you mad they won? Don't you want to get a good draft pick? I'm like, no, I want my team to win football games. I'm not here to root for the Saints to lose. We'll never be that day. We'll never be that day. Next up here on the comments, Ray says Alvin can have his pina coladas now. Shout out to Alvin Kamara, who got better as the day went on. There's something to be said for, insanity, where you just continually try the same thing over and over. But they did not have a lot of success on the run in the first half. Second half, it definitely opened up and got better. And that was partly with Alvin Kamara, who got that nice 16-yard scamper at the end. I like them running the read option with Taysom Hill and Kamara. So it was good to see a little bit of that life, and more importantly, that they didn't abandon it, right? Again, it's about improving. This team is absolutely far from being a winning football club, but they won today, and that's something to be excited about. We saw the screen pass, as Raheem points out in the chat, which is not something we had not seen the type of offense that we know these players can do. And we did see some good things. We did see Chris Olave show out. Look, there were questions after the draft. Some of y'all out there that I recognize were some of the ones asking this question. Did we trade the right receiver? Should we have kept Rashid Shaheed and traded Chris Olave? Because a lot of people don't feel like Rashid Shaheed got a lot of value in the trade. I feel like that's probably about what you were going to get for him, but we always want more. But should we have just traded Olave, the more valuable of the two, quote unquote, and kept Rashid Shaheed? But Today, if that was how you felt, I'm curious if you feel the same way, because we saw a different Chris Olave today. We saw a different Chris Olave. Chris Olave made an amazing catch on the sidelines. I'm not even referring to the touchdown that was a great ball by Tyler Shuck, but a great catch by Chris Olave. But Chris Olave also making another key drive. Just drive saving. That's what it was. Reception. Chris Olave came to play today, right? And when both these receivers were potentially on the way out, there was would we re-sign one? Do we re-sign one? And Chris Olave comes out with a 100-yard receiving game. Chris Olave has not had one of those in quite some time, at least not consistently. It was something that we had gotten used to Chris Olave being able to do. Oh, he's a guy who can get you, maybe he doesn't constantly get you touchdowns, because a lot of smaller receivers can struggle with that, but he would give you 100-yard games. Well, here we are with a 100-yard game. First time since last year against LA that you've seen Chris Olave have a 100-yard game. Now, he did get close twice this year at 98-98, but hey, horseshoes and hand grenades. First 100-yard game this season for Chris Olave, and obviously the deepest touchdown pass he's had. 62-yarder, absolute beaut. I'm sure a lot of Saints fans, after they get to listen to this podcast, are going to go check some of those highlights out. Mr. Don says Shuck was dealing today. Only thing stopping him was Kellen Moore. He should have had a 300-yard, 3 TD day. I did say that. Look, if Sean Payton was still here and the Saints had the ball with 3 minutes inside the Carolina Panthers territory, Tyler Shuck would have ended up with 300 yards and 3 TDs. Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints, they cared about those numbers. Like, they thought that it was, it's rewarding to hit that 303. But you know what? Shuck hasn't hit it yet. Maybe Shuck can hit it next game, which we'll have to wait on, because, well, that's how bye weeks and stuff work. We're going to have to wait to see more of this, and which means in theory, things get better, not worse. In theory, things get better with a week of more practice to build rapport with the wide receivers and being able to spend more time with this offensive line that, well, is kind of patchwork at the moment. So potentially a good thing to have that happen. But at the same time, congratulations out of the way, you're 2-8. Like, if nothing else, you are currently a 2-8 football team. Congratulations for the win. Who else? What else comments that we got? Mr. Don says, I think we traded the right guy. Shaheed is a speedster, but Olave is a speedster that also can make plays that he just could never make. We saw that today with better quarterback play. I do think we had good quarterback play today. I think if you're the New Orleans Saints, the main thing to worry about is just, am I finding the guys that I want to have success with in the future? Who are my long-term guys? That's, I think, got to be the real key right here. That's what's got to matter. Do I think it matters? I think it matters. How much does it matter? We'll have to wait and see. Again, it's only one game, so I don't want to overhype things. I don't want to make things seem greater than they are. But the New Orleans Saints won a football game, and that's pretty freaking dope. Chris comes in and says the team is fighting and improving. There's no can't-miss number one pick this year. Arville, Reese, Caleb, Downs, Ruben, Bain, etc. will all be available to us, enjoying the improvement. And the only way they wouldn't be available to us is if, in some way, in some form, the New Orleans Saints just keep winning and fall out maybe into the top 15. And maybe then people will gripe and complain that we won too much when we shouldn't have. But I'll take the wins all day. Abraham says, who dat? We're so back. Next up, sign Des Bryant to boost the wide receiver core. And number one, it's great to see you, Abraham. And number two, it's nice to see that you haven't left the Des Bryant references back. Like, you still got them. You're not giving up on the Des Bryant. Regine Louise says, Kelvin Banks seems to be getting better every game. He did have a couple of bad reps today, but honestly, he's the best offensive lineman I think we've drafted in a long, long time. You're right. He has absolutely looked good, and hopefully that does continue. I really enjoyed watching him, the film that we put out last week. Even though that was a loss, it still was nice to see him have, I thought, was a good game, and then came out today with another response. So Kelvin Banks, if you talk about, hey, the New Orleans Saints aren't that good, who do they have for the future? This is somebody they have for the future. They've got Kelvin Banks. That is a piece that you can build around. And, man, whether it's Tyler Shuck or a quarterback you draft, you got to have good offensive line play. Absolutely have to have it. So throw out more. Let's see what else you got. On a serious note, says Abraham, it's funny how we got rid of Penning and the offensive line seemed to look better and create more lanes for the offense. And this actually brings me kind of back to the Kellen Moore point because let me be honest with y'all. While I do like seeing the offensive line play well, one thing they did today was a lot more zone running. Again, and they had 122 yards rushing. Remember how a few weeks back we talked about, hey man, they went back to what works for them. You even heard them in the broadcast talking about, oh, they're using this one-cut style. They were running zone. Again, Kellen Moore, pay attention. This entire team, offensive line, running backs, etc., work better in a zone run system. Next week, look forward to duo blocking and trap blocks. But I'm just saying, they even called it out in the broadcast. Zone running is Alvin Kamara's thing. Zone running is Devin Neal's thing. If there was a guy who was more of a pure power between the tackles, hit the A-gap, run 26 pound, it was, Kendre Miller. But they today ran the system that works for them. And shout out to Devin Neal, by the way, who had 4 carries, 22 yards, had some great blocks in terms of pass protect. Really curious to see more snaps of him coming into the future. I feel like he's a guy that has shown some pretty good elements so far. It's, again, every bit helps as you try to work your way down and find those guys of your future. But a lot of positives today, and we've not been able to say a lot of positives in a bit. Even defensively, I feel like Pete Warner had a really good game. I feel like Brian Brzee is getting better when it comes to run defense. He's still not great there, but you saw a couple of plays a day of him having good stops in run defense. It's not a lot, and he's not an elite run defender, but you need to have that, especially with guys like, Nate Shepard got picked up a sack today. You have other guys in the defensive line trying to look better, but you see some good play from Brian Brzee. You saw some good play from the veteran Cam Jordan and Chase Young, who, is the king of the almost sack right now. I know everybody brings this up a lot and says it a lot. It was said about Cameron Jordan early in his career. Those pressures still matter. They still matter. You still need to get them in. You still have to make sure that you're taking advantage of those. And just as a player, bear in mind, sometimes you age a little bit. But that don't mean you got to age out. Shout out to Cameron Jordan for that 3.5 sacks, man. I think that was great. All right. Mr. Don says, yes, it's one game. It was a lot more fun game, though, to watch than any other this season. I hope Shuck keeps it up because I feel better about him than any quarterback in the upcoming draft. Well, I'll say this. He's older than any quarterback in the upcoming draft. Look, I do want to see more from Shuck. Obviously, you haven't seen enough to be able to make any type of real decision. But if you are a Saints fan, you saw a really good game from a quarterback who has not got a lot of time, who has not played a lot, at least at the NFL level, and you saw a good one today. And hopefully see more of that in the future. So, wish they'd use Kamara more in the screen game instead of trying to force him down the middle of the middle of the field for a few yards. I definitely agree with that. And I don't think you saw as much of that today. I don't think you did see as much of that today. I think that's part of why AK looks so much better. Key says, how much does Shuck's age dampen how much people view him in a positive light? Feels like a 22-year-old rookie playing today would get more hype. I think for fans, it dims it a lot. I think for the actual teams, they don't care. If the Saints would have cared, they wouldn't have drafted him in the second round. And that's honestly all that matters. Do the Saints believe and do the Saints care? I think the Saints believe, and I think the Saints don't care. And really, at the end of the day, again, we've said the average retirement age for a quarterback is 35, 36, lowest 34. That's 2 freaking contracts. Most NFL contracts are 3 to 4 years. And if you could tell a Saints fan right now, we're going to get you decent quarterback play, I mean, I would call it decent quarterback play, but you're going to get decent quarterback play for the next 8 years, most of y'all would take it, right? Who wouldn't? So I don't think the age matters, except for mostly the fans. It's a big deal for them. It was a big deal for them talking about Tyler Shuck being a year older than Spencer Rattler, with Rattler already having a year of experience. All that really matters is, are you winning football games? And if Shuck's the guy who does that, who cares? Another example is, you go tell Pittsburgh right now, and I know their season's not been perfect. Do you think Pittsburgh cares about Aaron Rodgers' age, or do they care the fact that they have a legitimate shot of taking the division? They're 5-3 right now. Now, that's not saying that Tyler Shuck is secretly A-Rod. That's not the argument. The argument is, it's not the age, it's what's on the field. And if he performs well, who cares? That's what matters. He's on the field, needs to perform well. End of story. Shouldn't dampen yours, Keith, or anybody else's. Definitely agree with Kamara getting more screens. He should be getting at least 2 per game. Well, baby steps. Baby steps. We'll see how it goes, but baby steps. Good game by Alontae Taylor as well. Alontae definitely had a good game in coverage. Obviously, pulling in the pick means something, but he also had a tackle for loss. Obviously, put some pressure in when he was asked to blitz, and I think you really felt like Young just wasn't comfortable. He completed 68% of his passes, but look at that, man. 5 yards per attempt. And we talk about that. Good, successful NFL quarterbacks are at the minimum 6-7 yards per attempt, right? So when you've got a guy that's forced to check down like that, even if you're not getting a lot of sacks, that pressure is clearly having an effect. It had an effect there. You saw the Saints take advantage of it. There you go. And that's with only 2 sacks. So there you go. Doesn't matter to me. It's time to play for 10, 12 years. Again, he could. We'll see how far it makes it. Look, Saints fans, we're going to end on a positive high note. Great game today. Who dat? God bless. Love every single one of you. Deuces. Catch you on the Discord, on the Facebooks, on the Twitters. We'll see you then. We're out. Who dat? God bless.